Hello there, kia ora. It's Oscar Monday, the day that I'm filming this, so let's have a little chat about a film, particularly a film that's going to upset an awful lot of right wing commentators because how dare the government give money to a movie that's essentially going to be a propaganda piece for a former prime minister, even though she's no longer in politics, no longer seeking any kind of election, and therefore the propaganda is to do what? Just make her look good? And that's not even what this film is about. Because, of course, all of the headlines are being kind of misleading because it's much easier to rage farm clicks than it is to tell a proper story for some media outlets. And this is a real concern. Not only in the way that our media tell stories like this and how they go out of their way to increase engagement, knowing that it's not actually effective engagement, it's just really great for selling advertising. But at the same time, there's so much misinformation out there around exactly what this film is and how the Film Commission does its job that it could be problematic going forward for other people seeking funding from them, or for people who want to put trust in the process of what it is that they fund. You see, the New Zealand Film Commission does have a problem. There are hundreds of people out there who would love money from the Film Commission to tell their stories, like me. I want to make a feature film. I'd love to have film commission funding. But that's not how the process works. You can't just say, I want it, give it to me. The company behind this particular project has a really fascinating framing model. This is a documentary, not a fiction piece. It's not a bio on Jacinda Ardern. It uses her to frame the rise of online extremism and hate in this country. And she's a really fascinating topic for this for a number of reasons. First of all, in terms of history being recorded for who has the most online hate, in this country it is by far Jacinda Ardern. At the same time, she also had to deal with issues that compounded it, like the Christchurch terror attacks and everything that happened during COVID. So, those kind of elements make this a fascinating framing for telling this particular story in an era where online extremism and online hate is constantly growing and being flirted with by not only our mainstream media, but kind of pushed by our alt right media as well. At the same time, we've got a lot of right wing commentators who are up in arms because how dare the New Zealand government give funding to something like this? But that's not how the New Zealand Film Commission gets its money. It's not entirely funded by the New Zealand government. Most of their funding, like much of the creative sector funding organisations, comes from the New Zealand Lotteries Board. So, your lotto tickets and your scratchies, that's where the money goes towards. They do get some funding from both the Ministry of Culture and Heritage and MBIE, but the majority of their funding still comes from lotteries. And when it comes to how they spend that money, well, there's a lot of stops and checks in the way before they actually get to a point where they give somebody funding. For most feature films, for example, what you're getting is a loan, not necessarily a handout. And the Film Commission would like to have their money back at some stage, which is also another income stream for them, along with things like the rights to online streaming services, for example, or distribution rights. So what we're seeing is $800,000 going towards a project that already has raised $3.2 million. This is less than a quarter of the total production budget on a topic that's obviously very popular as well as very concerning. And the company that's making this, well, they've got a bit of a history already when it comes to the films they make. They do beautifully crafted stories, both fiction and non-fiction, and many people out there will probably be aware of one of their most recent non-fiction pieces, Mr. Organ, which was a really, really creepy documentary done by David Farrier, which left everybody at the end going, what? And if you haven't seen it yet, I thoroughly recommend that you give it a watch. And one of the things that I found fascinating about it was the kind of gaslighting that Mr. Organ does himself. That's the kind of gaslighting that we get from a lot of these right wing commentators who are really upset about these things. Also, if New Zealanders did actually pay for this out of government coffers, they'd be putting in about 15 cents per person for the $800,000 investment in a documentary that's already got people talking, so therefore is going to have a built in audience, which makes it much more popular, particularly in a world where you're competing with the fact that there are less audiences going to cinemas these days, and online streaming services are seen as both the savior of and the bane to kind of traditional filmmaking. In fact, November last year, the Film Commission said we had to do more to get online audiences and online streamers paying attention to the stuff that we're making and getting them here to make stuff. So it seems like a bit of a no brainer, particularly since the government themselves don't say who it is that's going to get this money. It's done through a selection process that has a number of different steps. But don't worry, The right wing commentators online will tell you it's all terrible anyway, mostly because it involves Dame Jacinda Ardern.